At 0600 hours, ground crews at Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE were already moving. The flight line was active before sunrise. Maintenance teams walked the flight deck in pairs, checking each aircraft from nose to tail. Tools were laid out in sequence. Fuel trucks were already moving into position along the taxiway. The A-10 Thunderbolt II units had received their tasking the night before. By first light, the armament crews were already at work. Weapons carts rolled across the ramp carrying 30mm ammunition drums. The GAU-8 Avenger cannon was loaded round by round. Maverick missiles were lifted onto the underwing pylons. Each station was checked, torqued, and inspected a second time before the crew chief signed off. Pilots arrived at the briefing room at 0530. Charts of the Strait of Hormuz were spread across the table. The mission was straightforward. The A-10s would fly low patrol routes over the strait and monitor surface traffic. Fast attack boats. Fishing vessels operating outside normal patterns. Any vessel behaving like it was preparing to drop a mine into the shipping lane. The briefing lasted 40 minutes. Routes were marked. Bingo fuel states were confirmed. Communication frequencies were set. Pilots walked to their aircraft carrying helmets and kneeboard cards. At the flight line, ground crews were completing final walkarounds. Tires checked. Hydraulic lines inspected. Canopies wiped clean. Pilots climbed the boarding ladders and settled into their ejection seats. Crew chiefs helped them strap in, connecting oxygen hoses and communication leads one connection at a time. Engines started in sequence. The A-10 sat on the ramp as their twin turbofan engines spooled up to operating temperature. Ground crews pulled the wheel chocks and gave thumbs up. The aircraft began rolling toward the runway. Meanwhile, at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, a different operation was already underway. F-35A fighters assigned to the Hormuz patrol package were being prepared in the hardened aircraft shelters. Avionics were powered up and tested. Internal weapons bays were loaded with AIM 120 AMRAAM missiles. Fuel was topped off to maximum. Every system was checked against the maintenance log before the crew chief cleared the aircraft for flight. A KC-135 Stratotanker from the 340th Expeditionary Air Refueling Squadron was being prepared on a separate taxiway. Boom operators walked the fuselage checking fuel transfer systems. The tanker's job was to hold a racetrack orbit south of the strait and keep the F-35 patrol package airborne for extended periods, without returning to base. The F-35s taxied out in pairs. Ground crew marshaled each aircraft to the hold point. Pilots completed before takeoff checks. The tower cleared them for departure. One by one, the F-35s rolled onto the runway, pushed their throttles forward, and accelerated down the tarmac before lifting cleanly into the early morning sky. The KC-135 followed minutes later, heavy with fuel, climbing slowly and turning east toward its assigned orbit track south of the strait. Over the Strait of Hormuz, the A-10s arrived on station and descended toward their patrol altitude. Low and slow was the operational requirement. The Warthog was built for it. Its titanium bathtub protected the pilot from ground fire. Its engines were mounted high to reduce heat signature. It could absorb damage that would destroy any other aircraft and keep flying. The pilots worked the patrol route methodically, left to right across the shipping lane, eyes down on the water, sensors scanning. The strait was busy with commercial traffic. Tankers, cargo vessels, and smaller craft moved in both directions through the narrow passage. The A-10 crews watched everything. High above, the F-35s climbed to cruise altitude and went quiet. Their APG-81 AESA radars were active, scanning a wide volume of airspace in every direction. To Iranian air defense radar installations on the coastline, the F-35s returned almost nothing. The stealth profile reduced their radar cross-section to the size of a small bird. They were up there, but the Iranians could not see them. The F-35 pilots could see everything. Every Iranian airfield within range was on their radar scope. Any aircraft that powered up its engines on an Iranian runway would show on the screen within seconds. Speed, heading, altitude. The system built a track automatically. At 0912, 2 tracks appeared on the scope. 2 aircraft lifting off from an Iranian airbase on the northern coastline of the strait. The F-35 pilot watched the tracks climb through 5,000 feet and begin turning south. The aircraft were fast, twin-engine, high climb rate. The system identified them automatically from their radar signature and flight profile. F-14 Tomcats. Both aircraft were accelerating hard, heading directly toward the patrol area, where the A-10s were operating. The F-35 pilot checked the geometry. The Tomcats were coming down from altitude, using their speed to close the distance quickly. Their AWG-9 radars were probably already painting the A-10s down on the water. The F-35 pilot called the contact to the AWACS aircraft holding its orbit to the south. The call was acknowledged. Rules of engagement were confirmed. The F-35 turned to intercept and began a shallow descent, positioning himself above and behind the incoming Iranian formation. The Tomcats had no indication he was there. Their radar warning receivers were quiet. Their radar was pointed forward at the A-10s. In the cockpit, the Iranian pilots were running an intercept geometry that probably looked clean and uncomplicated from their perspective. A slow, unarmed target flying a predictable patrol route. No escort visible, no radar threat detected. The F-35 closed the range to 60 kilometers. The targeting solution on his screen was solid. Both tracks were stable. He opened his internal weapons bay. The doors swung apart for less than 2 seconds. 2 AIM-120 AMRAAMs dropped free from their internal stations. The bay doors closed. The missiles ignited and accelerated to Mach 4, climbing briefly before tipping over onto their intercept headings. Each missile had a target assigned. The fire control system had already done the geometry. At 30 kilometers, the AMRAAMs went active on their own seekers. Their onboard radars locked the Tomcats independently. The first warning the Iranian pilots received was the radar warning tone in their headsets as the missiles went terminal. The lead Tomcat broke hard left and dispensed chaff. The maneuver was aggressive and well executed. It would have worked against an older missile system. The AMRAAM corrected through the chaff cloud and maintained its track. The hit connected just aft of the cockpit section. The F-14 came apart at speed, debris scattering across a wide area of sky. The second Tomcat dove for the deck. The pilot swept his wings back and pushed his throttles to full military power, running for low altitude to try to break the engagement geometry. The second AMRAAM followed him down and caught him before he reached 1,000 feet. The aircraft disintegrated on impact. Both contacts disappeared from the F-35's scope simultaneously. Total elapsed time from first missile release to second impact was under 15 seconds. The F-35 pilot climbed back to cruise altitude and turned back onto his patrol track. His weapons bay was empty on 2 stations. Everything else was nominal. He checked in with the AWACS. The frequency was calm. Down on the water, the A-10 patrol continued without interruption. The pilots worked their route, scanning the surface traffic, watching the water. The engagement above them had happened too high and too fast to see. The KC-135 continued its orbit south of the strait. When the F-35 reached bingo fuel state 30 minutes later, it turned south to rendezvous with the tanker, topped off, and returned to station. The patrol continued.